Hi, thank you for volunteering for my Girl Scout project. I will videotape you answering some easy questions about your life. If there are any questions that make you uncomfortable, just say so and we'll skip those. And if you wish for your stories to not be public information, please tell me so at the end of the interview. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is your full name and age?
My name is Mary Jo Ann Long Sesow.
And your age?
83.
Were you an immigrant or a natural born citizen?
Natural born.
And were your parents immigrants?
No.
No. Do you know where your ancestors were from originally?
Well, I think the Longs were from England, and some of their previous ancestors were from Germany. And I think my mother's family, the Islanders, were all from England or England or Ireland, I guess, maybe. Probably all English, basically. Yeah.
Okay. What is your childhood memory?
I had a lot of fun as a child because I was the fifth child, and I had all these older people that did all the work, and I kind of had fun. My brothers were 6 and 8 years older, so they were not kind of hardly like brothers. But my sister Molly was only 20 months older, so we were kind of like twins. So, what was the rest of the question?
Just what your favorite childhood memory
Oh,
was?
I have a lot of them, but one thing I really remember is sled riding in the winter. I lived in West Virginia, and we had a hill at the elementary school that was good for sled riding. And when we had snow, there were about probably 8 or 9 or 10 children my age in this small town, so we had lots of people to go sledding with. And that was always a lot of fun. Now I always had pets, so they were big in my life. I think of the good times as being before teenage years. I think teenage years are difficult for anybody. And not that I have any bad memories of it, it's just that they didn't seem particularly exciting at the time.
Okay. Where did you grow up? What was it like living there? Was segregation prevalent where you lived?
I lived in a small town in West Virginia, Springfield, until I was in college. Then my family moved to the bigger town where my father had bought property and he was building houses. It was a very small town. There's probably 250 people maybe. But there were a lot of young children my age, and they all lived right in town, so we had a lot to do. I've spoken often of the fact that I was very, unworldly. We had no blacks, we had no Jews, we had no Catholics, we were typical WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And I didn't know discrimination. I didn't know there was such a thing as discrimination. Didn't know that even probably through college, because even in college we only had, 6 or 8 maybe blacks, and very few foreign speaking students. So I had no introduction to that until after I married and we started living in different places around the world. And then there were all kinds of different people. So I had a lot to learn. But this small town, I didn't know anything about the world, or hardly. Of course, we read the paper. But when I was 11, was the beginning of the Second World War. And that changed everything, because my brothers left. As I said, they were 6 and 8 years older. So my oldest brother Raymond joined the Marine Corps on December the 8th, after Pearl Harbor on December 7th. So he left a few days later. He went to training in North Carolina and South Carolina for maybe 8 weeks, and he came home on furlough, and he left after a few days at home and went to the South Pacific and didn't come home until the end of the war. He had no furloughs, he was just out in the South Pacific, hopping from island to island. My brother Ed was still in college, so he went another year and a half, I guess, before the draft was going to get him. So the Army Air Corps sent him to school in Hamilton, New York to be a meteorologist. And then he went from there to India. So my life really changed. And my father was building houses. He couldn't get material to build a house, so build anything. So he got a contract to go to Wheeling, West Virginia, to build a ferry boat to cross the Ohio River. And he would go out Monday through Friday and come home on the weekends. And I guess that probably took, 3 or 4 months of that. So my sister and I were appointed the job of milking the cow. We had one cow. Well, we had never milked a cow before. My mother would say, well, you just go start and I'll come help you. Okay. So here we go. Anyway, let's talk about childhood memories. But this went on the whole war, and my father, having a business and a pickup truck as well as a car, had the gas coupons for a B. A, you got hardly any gas. B, you got some gas. So like once a month, my dad would take us to the movies, which was 9 miles away. And we got to see a few cowboy movies or things like that. But I saw a few things, but not much. So it was not much happening. Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever met anyone famous or interesting?
Well, I met lots of people in D.C., in the government. I met people in Europe that were not famous, but they were well known in their country. Try to think of somebody. Once when we lived in Hawaii, they had a garden party at the Japanese embassy for the emperor and his wife. And we had an invitation. So, very high security. This was in the mid-70s. And we got to meet the Emperor of Japan at the garden party. Anything else? I can't remember. I can't think of anybody right now. Oh, I must have. All these people, it must have been somebody, but I can't think of anybody now.
It's okay. Were you involved in any wars, or was anyone? Oh, you sort of talked about this with your brothers.
No, I was too young for the war. But as I just gave you some my wartime story. We did, we went through the rationing you got. But see, I lived there where we had a cow and we had a big garden. So rationing didn't really bother us very much because we had everything right there we needed, basically. The only thing was gasoline. And, you just, it was, we used to have blackouts, that was hilarious. Yeah, well, nobody ever flew over our part of the world. That was my wartime experience. Yeah.
Was your husband in the war? I know you probably hadn't met him yet, but.
No. Well, he was in during Vietnam, but he didn't fight. He didn't go to Vietnam. So he was already. Actually, during the Korean War, he was in college, and he graduated, and they were going to draft him. So instead of being drafted, he went to graduate school. As long as you were a student, you didn't have to be drafted. But they still needed more, so they were going to draft everybody. So instead of being drafted into the Army, he joined the Navy. And so then he had a 30-year career in the Navy. But he never got to Korea because he just went in at the end of that war. And at Vietnam time, he was already a pretty senior officer. He was already a lieutenant commander or a commander. So he wasn't in Vietnam at Navy. And he was no longer flying, so he was in intelligence. So he didn't participate actively. I mean, he wasn't in country, as they say. Although we were nearby, that's when we lived in the Philippines. Yeah.
Okay. What is the greatest injustice you have ever witnessed?
Ooh. Injustice. Trying to think of something. There are some, of course. I don't know.
You can pass if you want.
Huh?
You can pass.
We can come back to it.
Hmm?
We can come back to this question.
Okay.
Okay. Tell your favorite story about your spouse.
Wow. There must be 6,000 of those. I was talking yesterday, I guess, about when we lived in Hawaii. We'd go to the beach, and Tony hated water. He didn't even like showers, but he took them, but he didn't even like them. But swimming pools is swimming. It's a wonder he ever passed swimming to be a naval aviator. But he did somehow. But we'd go to the beach, so he didn't want to swim, didn't want to do it. So he would hunt for puka shells. You know what puka shells are? Well, they're seashells, and the tops have worn off, so it's just the little base, and it's a little round thing like this, but it has a hole in the end of it. And if the hole is filled with sand, you can take a dental bit on a Dremel drill and take that out, and then you thread them on fish line and make necklaces. That's what he did. He collected puka shells by the millions, and he made many, many, many necklaces. That's one of the favorite things he made. But then he liked to collect sea glass. He colored, and he would make candles. So he did lots of things like that.
How did you meet Tony?
Hmm?
How did you meet?
How did he make candles?
No, how did you meet Tony?
Tony was a blind date. My friend at home was married, and her husband was in OCS, at Navy OCS, Officer Candidate School, in Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island. So it was summertime. I was teaching in Maryland, but I was in Romney for the summer, and she said, my husband is in Rhode Island, and why don't you go up with me? I'm going up for the weekend. You go up with me, we'll get you a blind date. So Tony was my blind date. And that was a 4th of July weekend. Then he came to my house in Romney for Christmas. He was there a couple of days. And then we had a Then he visited in January once, and we were engaged in February, and we were married in July. And then we moved to Pensacola, Florida for 2 months. Then we moved to Hutchinson, Kansas for 4 months. That was pretty bad. But I got through it. Then we moved to Rhode Island for 3 years, and both children were born in Rhode Island. Yeah.
Okay. Talk about your children. How many did you have, and how fun or hard were they to raise? You can talk about your grandchildren too.
I have 2 children, Tim and Beth. Timothy and Elizabeth. And Tim is the oldest. He is now a open source computer storage company owner. I guess is the way he would say it. And he lives in Colorado, near Denver. And Beth is the youngest, and she's now teaching school in near Boston, and having a grand time teaching immigrant students English. And some of those stories are hilarious. I have 5 grandchildren. The first 4 were boys, and the last one was a girl. The first 2 grandsons were born 6 weeks apart, and 2.5 years later, 2 grandsons were born 6 weeks apart, each in different families. So I had 4 grandsons in 3.5 years, 2.5 years. So I was making quilts, but I ran out of time. I didn't get them all finished. Then Laurie was born about 3 years after that. No great-grandchildren yet. 1 grandchild is married. Matthew was married in Colorado August of 2012. So all the others are still single. But Joey is being married in April in the Virgin Islands. And I'm going, that's a long way to go. It's a long way to go. Yep.
Okay. Have you ever broken the law?
Yeah, I got a ticket. My one ticket for running a red light, which totally surprised me. And then that angered me kind of, because I didn't do it intentionally, and it was purely accidental. Did it break the law? I don't think so. I really can't think of an occasion where I broke the law. One time in college, my senior year, just before graduation, we went across the state line to Pennsylvania and bought beer, but we didn't bring it back. And I didn't drink beer. I don't know why I did it. I did it because everybody was going, so I did it. I don't think I have. I really don't. I can't think of an occasion other than that ticket for running a red light. Thank goodness. It would scare me to death to end up in jail, I think. Oh no, I'd probably die right there.
Okay. What is your favorite holiday story with your family and friends?
Ooh. Growing up, Christmas was pretty simple compared to what it is today. When I was little, the tree was decorated after I went to bed, so Santa Claus decorated the tree. That was till like I was 6 years old. Then my brothers probably told me I was silly for still believing that. I don't know. I don't think we ever did anything for Christmas as far as vacation or anything like that. Christmas was celebrated pretty simply when I was young. Being born in 1930, We were probably lucky to have Christmas for the first 3 or 4 years. I don't remember that, of course, but my father built us a house, a nice big house, brick and everything. And they say that they moved in early to the house because they had to move early. No, what was it? How was it? They said they moved so that I would crawl on the bare floors or something like that. Something they did to the house so I wouldn't have to crawl around on the bare floors. So that was probably in between 1930 and 31. So I'm sure Christmases were very simple. Can't remember any specific thing about Christmas.
Do you have any recent stories, maybe with your grandchildren? Do you see them on Christmas?
No, can't think of anything. No.
Okay.
They'll be disappointed when they see this. That I don't remember something about Christmas.
What about Christmas when you're in Hawaii? Did you go to the beach or?
One story about Christmas, which is not really about the holiday, except the fact that both the children were in West Virginia going to college. And we were in Hawaii, Tony and I. So we were going to get them home for Christmas. So we bought them airline tickets. So they were all set. Then the airline went on strike. Just before Christmas, there was going to be United. There was going to be no way to get them home. So I said, we have to do something. There's some way we've got to get them here for Christmas. I don't want to be here at Christmas without the children. So Tony bought them tickets on Qantas Airlines from Washington, D.C. to Australia. The plane was going to land in Hawaii for refueling. So they were going to get off in Hawaii and spend Christmas and then go back from Hawaii to D.C. when I went back the other way. I think what that was going to cost us, but they were going to be there for Christmas. And about, 2 days before Christmas, they went off strike. So they got to come on United Airlines, and we didn't have to pay all that money to get them there. But we were determined they were going to be home for Christmas.
So they actually allowed you to cancel the ticket?
Hmm?
They allowed you to cancel the ticket?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, things were different then, not like they are today. Like airlines rule the world here, I think.
Okay. What other interesting stories do you have? Please share as many as you can think of.
Oh my. Once when we lived in the Philippines, I took a trip with was it 2 or 3 other women. We flew from Manila to Zamboanga. And in Zamboanga we stayed there, and we hired a banca boat, which is really just a floating piece of log, and a guide, and he took us out. The water was very shallow. Where he took us, you could just wade for miles, I guess. But the fish were unbelievable. Just the colors and all sizes and all kinds, and it was, what a fabulous day that was. Just we 3 or 4 women and this guide, and it's a wonderful day. I had trips to Hong Kong, which were great. We got to fly military aircraft, which is an experience in itself because they don't have seats. They have these kind of canvas things along the side of the airplane, and you sit there in, like a bucket seat, and put a seat belt on. And it's colder than blazes in the back of that airplane, but great. Don't have to pay anything for it. So we had a couple of trips to Hong Kong, then another time we went to Hong Kong, we took the children, but that was commercial. We were going to this restaurant to eat dinner. Very, very classy restaurant. And we go to maitre d', and the maitre d' says, "I'm sorry, the boy must have a coat." Tim didn't have a jacket to put on. We live in the Philippines. He didn't own a coat. I'm going to the maitre d', "Oh, come on, he doesn't even own a coat. He has on a jacket sweater." Well, all right. So he seated us for dinner. But we had lots of trips. The children and I got to go from Norfolk to Athens, Greece. Tony's aircraft carrier put in there, and we were with him for a week and got to see Athens, and a little bit outside. And the next summer, we got to go to Barcelona, Spain, for a few days. Same thing. The carriers would put into foreign ports as just gestures of that we're here to keep peace. And the Navy chartered an aircraft and took wives and children. We had to pay, but it was really a nominal fee compared to what the real cost would have been on a chartered plane, I guess. But it worked out really well, and we got some nice trips out of it. And I think they benefited very much from these trips that we were able to take, much more than I did. So, yeah. What was the question? I digress.
Interesting stories.
That's some of the interesting stories. Yeah.
Do you have any other interesting stories, or?
No, I could probably go on for quite a while, but I can't think of anything right now.
Alright. One of the questions that we skipped was, what is the greatest injustice you have ever witnessed? You still can't.
I think any injustice I witnessed was probably minor. But I'm sure there's something that made quite an impression on me. I just can't think of anything right now.
Okay. That's all the questions that I have. Do you have anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for participating in my project.
Thank you.